The space station floated in the darkness between stars like a giant metal beast. Its name was Death's Gate, and everyone in the shadow sectors knew what happened there. Commander Yuki stood on the bridge of his command ship, watching the weekly transport arrive through the viewport. His cold reptilian eyes gleamed as he counted the new prisoners being dragged from the cargo hold. The Galactic Combat League made billions of credits every month. Rich aliens from dozens of worlds paid huge amounts to watch desperate beings fight to the death. It was cruel, but it was legal in this forgotten corner of space where no government had power. Yuki's scales were dark green with black spots that marked his rank in the Veloth Empire. He was tall even for his species, standing over 8 feet with arms that could crush steel. His uniform was covered with medals from wars most beings had forgotten. Now he ran the most profitable death arena in known space. Captain Soman walked onto the bridge carrying a data pad. She was a Kraxi warrior with 4 arms and skin like orange leather. Battle scars covered her face and neck, proof of her years fighting in the arena before becoming a guard captain. She had worked for Yuki for 5 years and never questioned his orders. "Commander, the new shipment has arrived," Soman reported in her rough voice. "We have 43 prisoners from 7 different worlds. Most are the usual criminals and debtors, but there is something strange." Yuki turned away from the viewport. "Strange how?" Soman tapped her datapad with one of her clawed fingers. The transport captain found a small group hiding in a damaged cargo container. They were not on any prison list. The captain thinks they were refugees trying to escape some war. "Refugees make good fighters," Yuki said with no emotion. "Desperate beings fight harder when they have nothing left to lose." "How many?" 12 adults and 1 child. The adults are from different species, but the child is something new. The computer cannot identify what species it is. This made Yuki interested. New species meant new entertainment for the crowds. "Show me." Salmon pressed buttons on her datapad. A hologram appeared in the air showing the prison holding cells. Most cells held the usual mix of aliens that Yuki had seen thousands of times. But in cell 47, something made him pause. A small, pale creature sat on the metal floor. It looked young, maybe the size of a 12-year-old Kraxi child, but much thinner. Its skin was light pink and it had strange dark hair on top of its head. But what made Yuki stare was how calm the creature looked. While other prisoners cried or shouted or begged, this small being just sat quietly. "What is it wearing around its neck?" Yuki asked. Salman looked closer at the hologram. "Some kind of metal tag. The scanners show it contains data, but the encryption is too advanced for our computers to read." The small creature suddenly looked up at the camera as if it knew they were watching. Its eyes were unlike anything Yuki had seen. They were not the eyes of a frightened child. They were old eyes, tired eyes, eyes that had seen too much pain. "Have you tried the universal translator on it?" "Yes, sir. It speaks, but our computers cannot understand the language. The sounds are completely unknown." Yuki made a decision that would change everything. "Put it in tomorrow's opening match." Soman's orange skin turned slightly darker, which meant she was confused. "Sir, it is just a child. The crowd expects real fights. The crowd loves variety," Yuki said coldly. "They pay extra to see something new die. This small creature will make them laugh before the real matches begin. Put it against Dongmin, the Thorak Berserker. The size difference will be amusing." "Yes, sir," Soman said, but her voice showed doubt. Down in cell 47, the human child named Jiho sat with his back against the cold metal wall. He understood more than his captors knew. His enhanced hearing had picked up their conversation through the station's air vents. His enhanced mind had already learned enough of their language to understand their plans. Jiho touched the ID tag hanging from the chain around his neck. It was warm against his fingers, warm because it was working. The tag sent out a signal every few seconds, a signal that could travel through space faster than light. His teachers had told him that no matter where he went in the galaxy, this tag would always call for help. But help might take time to arrive. Jiho had been trained for situations like this. He was part of Project Nightfall, Earth's most secret military program. They had taken him from his family when he was 5 years old and turned him into something that looked like a normal child, but was actually a living weapon. His bones were harder than steel. His muscles could generate force that would break alien limbs. His reflexes were faster than any natural creature in known space. His mind could process combat information and make tactical decisions in microseconds. The other prisoners in nearby cells tried to talk to him. A blue-skinned Zentari woman in cell 46 kept asking if he was scared. A large Macron male in cell 48 offered to protect him. Jiho appreciated their kindness, but they did not understand what he was. "Thank you," Jiho said softly in perfect galactic standard, surprising the other prisoners who thought he could not speak their language. "But I will be fine." The Zentari woman pressed her face against the energy barrier of her cell. "Child, they are going to make you fight Dongmin tomorrow. He has killed 47 opponents. You cannot possibly survive." Jiho looked at her with those ancient eyes. "I know about Dongmin. I have been watching the arena broadcast since they captured me. He is strong and fast for his species, but he has poor footwork and always attacks the same way." "You have been watching the fights?" asked the Macron male. "Why are you not afraid?" Jiho stood up and walked to the front of his cell. He was small and thin, but something in the way he moved made the other prisoners step back from their barriers. "Because I am not what they think I am," Jiho said quietly. "And tomorrow, they are going to learn what happens when someone hurts a human child." High above in the command center, Yuki was already planning the entertainment for the next day's matches. He had no idea that he had just signed the death warrant for his entire operation. He had no idea that somewhere in deep space, powerful ships were already turning toward his coordinates. He had no idea that he had just made the worst mistake in galactic history. The small human child in cell 47 was not prey. He was the most dangerous predator in the entire galaxy, and tomorrow the universe would remember why humanity had survived every war it had ever fought. The ID tag around Jiho's neck continued to pulse its signal into the void, counting down the hours until rescue arrived. The arena floor was covered with sand that had turned dark red from years of spilled blood. Thousands of aliens filled the massive stadium, their excited voices creating a roar that shook the metal walls. In the expensive seats, crime lords and wealthy merchants placed bets on how quickly the small human would die. Commander Yuki sat in his private box, watching the crowd through the thick glass windows. Below him, arena workers dragged away the body of a Kalani fighter who had lost the previous match. Fresh sand was spread over the bloodstains, making the fighting pit ready for the next entertainment. "The crowd seems especially excited today," said Captain Soman, as she joined Yuki in his viewing box. "Word has spread about the strange new creature. Some are betting it will not last 30 seconds. Yuki's cold reptilian smile showed his sharp teeth. "Fear and death always bring good profits. How much have we collected in bets so far?" "Over 2 million credits, sir. More than we usually see for an entire day of matches." In the preparation chambers beneath the arena, Jiho sat calmly on a metal bench. Arena guards had given him basic fighting gear, but it was too big for his small frame. The chest plate hung loose on his thin body and the arm guards kept sliding down to his wrists. 2 guards stood nearby watching him. They were both Craxi warriors like Captain Somin, with orange skin and 4 arms each. Their names were Wubin and Kyung, and they had been working the arenas for 3 years. They had seen hundreds of fighters prepare for their deaths, but something about this human child bothered them. "He is too calm," Wubin whispered to his partner. "Every fighter shows some fear before their first match. This one acts like he is waiting for a meal, not facing death." Kyung nodded his large head. "Maybe his species does not understand what death means. Some primitive beings cannot imagine their own destruction." Jiho heard every word they said. His enhanced hearing could pick up conversations from across the room. But he said nothing. Instead, he closed his eyes and ran through his combat training in his mind. His instructors on Earth had prepared him for situations exactly like this. The arena announcer's voice boomed through the speakers, speaking in galactic standard so all species could understand. "Ladies and gentlemen, beings of all worlds, welcome to today's special opening match. We have discovered a new species in the outer sectors. Behold, the first human ever to enter our arena." A metal door slid open and Jiho walked into the bright lights of the fighting pit. The crowd's roar became even louder as they saw how small he was. Some aliens laughed and pointed at the tiny figure standing in the center of the blood-stained sand. Across the arena, another door opened with a deep, grinding sound. Dongmin the Thorac Berserker stepped into the light, and the crowd fell silent for a moment. He was 8 feet tall and covered in thick brown fur. His arms were longer than Jiho's entire body, and his claws could cut through metal. Scars covered his chest and face from 47 previous victories. Dongmin looked down at the small human and snorted with disgust. "This is my opponent? I have fought children before, but never one so pathetic. I will make your death quick, small creature. Jiho looked up at the massive thorax and spoke in perfect galactic standard. Thank you for your kindness, but I think you misunderstand the situation. The crowd gasped in surprise. They had expected the human to cry or beg for mercy. Instead, the child stood straight and calm as if he was discussing the weather. In his viewing box, Yuki leaned forward. It can speak our language? The scanners said it could not understand us. Maybe it learned while in the cells, Soman suggested. Some species are quick learners. The arena announcer raised his voice again. The human speaks. How interesting. Perhaps it will provide better entertainment than expected. Fighters prepare for combat. A loud horn sounded across the arena, signaling the start of the match. Dongmin roared and charged forward, his massive feet shaking the ground with each step. His claws extended from his fingers, ready to tear the small human apart. But when Dongmin reached the spot where Jiho had been standing, the human child was no longer there. Jiho had moved to the side so quickly that most of the crowd missed it. One moment he was directly in front of the charging thorax. The next moment he was 3 feet to the left. Dongmin's claws swept through empty air as his momentum carried him forward. The thorax spun around, confused and angry. Where did you go, little creature? I'm right here, Jiho said calmly. He was now standing behind Dongmin, having moved again while the berserker was turning around. Dongmin roared in frustration and swung his massive arms in a wide circle, trying to catch the human with his claws. But Jiho ducked under the attack and stepped closer to the thorax body. What happened next was too fast for most of the crowd to see clearly. Jiho's small fist struck Dongmin in the side just below his ribs. The punch looked weak, like a child hitting a wall. But the sound that followed was like breaking stone. Dongmin staggered backward, his eyes wide with shock and pain. He looked down at his side where the human had struck him. Through his thick fur, a dark bruise was already forming. That is impossible, Dongmin gasped. You are too small. Your strength cannot be real. Jiho tilted his head to one side, studying the thorax like a scientist examining an interesting specimen. Your species has dense muscle fibers and thick bones, but your nerve clusters are in predictable locations. Your balance depends on your inner ear, which connects to pressure points at the base of your skull. As Jiho spoke, he moved around Dongmin in a slow circle. The massive berserker turned to follow him, but his movements were becoming clumsy. The punch to his side had damaged something important inside his body. What are you? Dongmin demanded, fear now mixing with his anger. Jiho stopped moving and looked up at the thorax with those ancient eyes. I am what you get when someone hurts a human child. The fight ended 30 seconds later. Jiho moved like water flowing around Dongmin's increasingly desperate attacks. Each time the human struck, it was precise and devastating. Not killing blows, but strikes that shut down the thorax nervous system piece by piece. When Dongmin finally collapsed unconscious on the arena floor, the entire stadium was silent. 20,000 aliens stared down at the small human child, who had just defeated the most dangerous fighter in the galaxy without even breathing hard. In his viewing box, Commander Yuki felt something he had not experienced in decades. Fear. 3 light-years away from the Death's Gate arena, Admiral Minho was drinking coffee in his private quarters aboard the battlecruiser Soul's Fury. The coffee was real, grown on Earth and shipped across space at enormous cost. As the commander of humanity's 3rd deep space fleet, Minho could afford such luxuries. The peaceful moment ended when his communication device began screaming with urgent alarm tones. The sound meant only one thing: a code black emergency, the highest priority distress signal in the human military. Minho dropped his coffee cup and ran to the bridge. His crew was already at their stations, faces tense with concentration. Lieutenant Huna, his tactical officer, looked up from her console with worried eyes. Admiral, we are receiving a code black signal from the shadow sectors. The encryption matches Project Nightfall protocols. Minho felt his blood turn cold. Project Nightfall was humanity's most classified military program. Only a handful of people in the entire galaxy knew it existed. The fact that a Nightfall operative was sending a distress signal meant something had gone very wrong. Show me the signal data, Minho ordered. The main screen filled with technical information that would have been meaningless to most people. But Minho had helped design the Nightfall program years ago, before he became a fleet admiral. He recognized the patterns immediately. Sparrow 7, he said quietly. Jiho Communications Officer Taewan turned in his chair. Sir, do you know this operative? Minho nodded grimly. I recruited him myself 5 years ago. He was 7 years old when his parents died in the Proxima attack. We found him hiding in the ruins of his school, protecting 6 younger children from Zelkan raiders. He had killed 2 adult Zelkans with a broken piece of metal. The bridge crew exchanged glances. They all knew about the Proxima colony massacre, one of humanity's darkest days. 60,000 civilians had died when alien raiders attacked the peaceful farming world. The children who survived that horror had been damaged in ways that ordinary therapy could not heal. The signal is coming from coordinates in the HFY system, Hyuna reported. That is deep in shadow sector space outside any government jurisdiction. What is Jiho doing out there? Asked Captain Ji-won, who had just arrived on the bridge. She commanded the stealth reconnaissance ship Ghost of Busan, which usually operated alongside Seoul's Fury. Minho accessed his secure files with his command codes. He was on a diplomatic mission to the Andorian Republic. His transport was carrying sensitive intelligence about Zelkan fleet movements. The boy was supposed to deliver the data and return home within 2 weeks. That was 6 weeks ago, Taewon said, checking his chronometer. Then something went wrong. Very wrong. Minho turned to his communications officer. Send a priority message to Earth Command. Tell them we have a nightfall emergency and are responding with full force. Then contact all ships in our task group. We are going to collect our boy. Within 2 hours, Task Force Thunder was assembled in space. 12 of humanity's most advanced warships formed a perfect attack formation. Each vessel was equipped with technology that made them individually more powerful than most alien fleets. The ships were beautiful in their deadly efficiency. Their hulls were made from materials that could absorb energy weapons and reflect them back at attackers. Their engines could push them through space faster than anything else in the known galaxy. Their weapons could punch holes through planets, but more important than their technology were their crews. Every human on those ships was a volunteer. Many had children of their own back on Earth. All of them understood what it meant to leave a child alone among enemies. Admiral Minho stood on his bridge as the fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace. Around him, his officers worked with quiet determination. There was no excitement or battle fever. This was not about conquest or glory. This was about bringing home a lost child. Admiral, said Hyuna, I am reading the detailed analysis of Sparrow 7's signal. The data shows he is being held at a location called Death's Gate. It appears to be some kind of combat arena. Minho's face became a mask of controlled fury. They put a human child in a fighting arena? The signal indicates he has been forced to participate in matches, sir. But he appears to be uninjured and still in operational status. Captain Ji-won laughed grimly. Operational status? These aliens have no idea what they have captured, do they? No, Minho said coldly. They think they caught a helpless refugee child. They do not know that Jiho can kill a full-grown thorac with his bare hands. They do not know that his reflexes are faster than their computers. They do not know that he was trained by the best military instructors in human space. The hyperspace engines began powering up with a deep humming sound that vibrated through the ship's hull. On the navigation display, a course appeared showing the route to the HFY system. The journey would take 18 hours at maximum speed. All ships report ready for hyperspace jump, Taewon announced. Minho opened a communication channel to the entire task force. His voice was calm but filled with deadly promise. Attention all vessels. We are going to retrieve one of our own from hostile aliens. The enemy does not know we exist. They do not know our capabilities. They have made the mistake of thinking that humans are weak because we prefer peace. He paused, letting his words sink in across the fleet. When we arrive at the target, we will give them one opportunity to surrender the boy unharmed. If they refuse, we will show them why humanity has never lost a war. We will show them what happens when someone threatens our children. The first ship jumped into hyperspace with a flash of blue light, then the second, then the third. One by one, the most powerful warships in human space disappeared into the void, racing toward a distant arena where a human child waited for rescue. Behind them, automated beacons began transmitting a message to every government and military force in the galaxy. The message was simple and terrifying in its implications. This is Admiral Minho of the Human Deep Space Fleet. We are responding to a Code Black emergency in the HFY system. Any attempt to interfere with our rescue operation will be considered an act of war against humanity. You have been warned. In the shadow sectors, crime lords and pirates who monitored military communications began to feel fear. The message was transmitted in 17 different languages and used technology more advanced than anything they had seen. For the first time, the galaxy realized that the quiet species from the outer rim might not be as primitive as they had assumed. The humans were coming, and nothing would stop them from protecting their young. Aboard Sol's Fury, Admiral Minho stood watch as his fleet raced through hyperspace. In 18 hours, the aliens who had dared to hurt a human child would learn the most important lesson in galactic history. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was the apex predator, and they were about to remember why. The sensor technician aboard Death's Gate Station was named Young-Ho, and he had been watching empty space for 7 boring years. His job was to detect approaching ships and report them to Commander Yuki. Most days, he saw nothing but cargo transports and the occasional pirate vessel. Today was different. Commander Yuki to the sensor control room immediately, Young-Ho announced over the station's communication system. His voice shook with fear and confusion. When Yuki arrived, Young-Ho pointed at his screen with a trembling finger. "Sir, I'm detecting 12 ships approaching our position. They will arrive in 6 hours. Yuki looked at the display and frowned. 12 ships is not unusual. Perhaps it is a merchant convoy seeking entertainment. No, sir, Young-Ho said. These are not merchant vessels. Look at their energy signatures. Yuki studied the data more carefully. What he saw made his cold blood even colder. The approaching ships were massive, far larger than anything in the League's fleet. Their power outputs were beyond anything in his computer databases. Their speed through space was impossible according to known physics. What species builds ships like these? Yuki asked. Unknown, sir. The computer cannot identify the technology. But, sir, there is something else. I am detecting weapon signatures that match no known design. Captain Soman entered the control room carrying her personal weapon, a massive plasma rifle designed for her forearms. Commander, the other stations in this sector are reporting similar contacts. 12 unknown ships moving in perfect formation toward our location. Yuki felt something he had not experienced since his youth. Genuine terror. Contact the Galactic Council immediately. Request military assistance. Sir, I already sent the request, Somin replied. The Council's response just arrived. She handed Yuki a datapad containing the official reply. As he read it, his green skin turned pale. The message was short and devastating. The Galactic Council advises Death's Gate Station to surrender immediately any human prisoners in your custody. Do not attempt to negotiate. Do not attempt to resist. Comply fully with all demands from the approaching human fleet. The Council disavows any association with your organization and will not provide military support. You are on your own. Human, Yuki said. The small creature in our cells is human. Somin nodded grimly. It appears so, sir. And apparently we have made a serious mistake. Far below in the station's prison levels, Jiho sat in his cell listening to the growing panic in the guards' voices. His enhanced hearing picked up conversations from across the station. The aliens were frightening themselves with reports of approaching human ships. Jiho smiled for the first time since his capture. His people were coming. In the cell next to his, the blue Zentari woman named Sua pressed her face against the energy barrier. Human child, the guards are talking about ships coming to attack the station. They say your species is coming for you. Yes, Jiho said simply. They are. The large Macron male in the opposite cell laughed bitterly. Do not give yourself false hope, young one. No government sends fleets to rescue single prisoners. It is not profitable. Jiho turned to look at the alien. You do not understand how humans think. We do not measure the worth of our children in credits. High above them, Commander Yuki was trying to organize his defenses. Death's Gate Station had its own fleet of 30 warships ranging from fast attack craft to heavy cruisers. It should have been enough to handle any threat. But as reports came in from across the shadow sectors, Yuki realized he was facing something unprecedented. The approaching human ships moved like no vessels he had ever seen. They changed course instantly, accelerated without apparent limits, and maintained formations so perfect they seemed controlled by a single mind. Crime Lord Wanho arrived on the station's command deck, wearing his finest robes and carrying his ceremonial sword. He was a Blaxian noble who owned controlling interests in 17 different illegal enterprises. His purple skin was decorated with gold tattoos that showed his wealth and status. Yuki, explain to me why my profits are being threatened by unknown aliens, Wanho demanded. Sir, It appears that one of our prisoners is from a species called humans. They are sending a rescue fleet to retrieve their child. Wanho's 6 eyes narrowed dangerously. One child? You are telling me that an entire fleet is coming for one small prisoner? Yes, sir. And the Galactic Council has ordered us to surrender immediately. The Council are cowards, Wanho snarled. I did not build this empire by surrendering to every threat. How many ships are they sending? 12, sir. 12 ships against our 30 vessels? Those are good odds. Order our fleet to intercept and destroy the humans before they reach the station. Captain Soman stepped forward. Sir, perhaps we should consider negotiation. The Council's warning suggests these humans are more dangerous than they appear. Wanho struck her across the face with his jeweled hand. I do not pay you to show weakness. Order the attack immediately, or I will find someone who will. The League's fleet moved out to meet the approaching humans 6 hours later. Admiral Bachmann commanded the force from his flagship, a converted Zelkin dreadnought armed with particle beam weapons and nuclear missiles. He was confident that 30 ships could handle 12 unknown vessels, regardless of their technology. When the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, Bachmann got his first clear look at them through his ship's telescopes. What he saw made him wonder if surrender might have been the better choice. The human ships were works of art. Their hulls gleamed like polished metal but seemed to bend light around them in impossible ways. They moved through space without visible engines, as if they could control gravity itself. Most disturbing of all, they formed a perfect geometric pattern that hurt to look at directly. All ships, this is Admiral Bachmann, he announced to his fleet. We are facing unknown technology, but we still have superior numbers. Attack Formation 7. Target their largest vessel first. The League ships opened fire with everything they had. Particle beams, plasma cannons, missile swarms, and laser batteries all focused on the lead human ship. The combined firepower was enough to destroy a small planet. The human ship absorbed the attack without taking any visible damage. Then the humans fired back. The first League vessel to die was the cruiser Venom's Edge. Beam of pure white light touched its hull for less than a second, and the entire ship simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no debris field, no emergency signals. One moment it was there. The next moment there was only empty space. Admiral Bachmann stared at his tactical display in horror. What kind of weapon was that? His question was answered when 3 more League ships vanished in quick succession. The human weapons cut through their shields and armor like they were made of paper. But more terrifying than the destruction was the precision. The humans were not trying to kill the crews. They were surgically disabling each ship's weapons and engines while leaving life support intact. All ships retreat to the station, Bachmann ordered. We cannot fight weapons we do not understand. But it was too late. The human ships moved like living things, surrounding the League fleet in a perfect sphere. One by one, every League vessel was disabled and left drifting in space. The entire battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. Admiral Minho's voice echoed across all communication frequencies, speaking in perfect galactic standard. League forces, this is the human battleship Soul's Fury. Your weapons are disabled, but your crews are unharmed. You have one opportunity to avoid further consequences. Surrender the human child you are holding prisoner, and we will consider this a misunderstanding. Refuse, and we will show you what happens when someone threatens our young. On Death's Gate Station, Commander Yuki watched his entire fleet get destroyed through the viewport. His hands shook as he reached for the communication controls. This is Commander Yuki of Death's Gate Station. We surrender. The human prisoner will be released immediately. But Crime Lord Wanho pushed Yuki away from the controls and seized the microphone. This is Lord Wanho. Your weapons are impressive, humans, but you are still only 12 ships. This station has defense systems that can destroy entire fleets. Leave now, or we will add your hulls to our trophy collection. In his cell deep below, Jiho heard Wanho's words and shook his head sadly. The crime lord had just made the worst mistake of his very short remaining life. Admiral Minho's response was quiet and cold. So be it, you have chosen war. Death's Gate Station had been built inside a hollowed-out asteroid 3 miles long and 2 miles wide. Its shields were designed to withstand attacks from entire fleets. Its weapons could destroy ships at ranges of 1,000,000 miles. Lord Wanho had spent decades and billions of credits making it the most defended criminal stronghold in the galaxy. The human attack began 30 seconds after his defiant message ended. Soul's Fury moved closer to the station. station with graceful, impossible speed. From its hull, beams of coherent energy lanced out and touched the station's shield generators. The shields that had protected Death's Gate for 20 years flickered once and died. "Shields are down," reported sensor technician Young-ho, his voice filled with terror. "All generators have been destroyed simultaneously." "How is that possible?" Commander Yuki stared at his tactical display in disbelief. They hit 17 different targets at the exact same moment, with surgical precision. Their computers must be beyond anything we can imagine. Lord Wanho grabbed Yuki by the throat with his powerful hands. "Stop making excuses and return fire. Use the main particle cannons." The station's massive weapons turned toward the approaching human ships and fired their full power. Beams of concentrated energy that could vaporize battleships struck the lead human vessel directly. The beams bounced off harmlessly, reflecting back into space like light hitting a mirror. "Impossible," Wanho whispered. "Nothing can deflect that much energy." Captain Soman ran onto the command deck carrying a damage report. "Sir, the humans have launched some kind of boarding craft. Small ships too fast for our sensors to track properly. They are heading for docking bays 7, 12, and 19. Seal all docking bays," Yuki ordered. "Activate internal defense systems. If they want to board us, we will make them fight for every corridor." But the human boarding craft did not use the docking bays. Instead, they simply passed through the station's hull as if it were not there. Advanced sensors detected the intruders materializing inside the station at multiple locations. In the prison levels, Guard Captain Kiwoon was leading a squad of 20 armed Kraxi warriors toward the human child cell. His orders were to use Jiho as a hostage to force the attacking fleet to retreat. "Move quickly," he told his soldiers. "Secure the human before the boarders reach this level." They never made it to Jiho's cell. Captain Jiwon of the Ghost of Busan materialized in the corridor ahead of them, having used her ship's experimental teleportation system. She wore powered armor that made her look like a mechanical warrior from nightmares. Her weapon was a rifle that fired projectiles smaller than grains of sand but moving at near light speed. "Stand down," she ordered the guards in perfect galactic standard. "Drop your weapons and you will not be harmed." Kiwoon laughed and raised his plasma rifle. "One human against 20 Kraxi warriors. You must be insane." The fight lasted 8 seconds. Jiwon moved through the Kraxi guards like death itself. Her armor made her faster and stronger than any organic being. Her weapon punched holes through their body armor without slowing down, but she was careful not to kill unless she had to. Most of the guards were left unconscious with non-fatal wounds. When the corridor was clear, Jiwon walked to cell 47 where Jiho sat waiting patiently. She knelt down so her armored helmet was at his eye level. "Hello, Sparrow 7. Sorry we're late." Jiho smiled, and for the first time in weeks he looked like the 12-year-old child he really was. "Hello, Captain Jiwon. I knew you would come." She deactivated the cell's energy barrier and helped him stand up. "Are you injured?" "No. They made me fight in their arena, but their champions were not very challenging." Jiwon laughed inside her helmet. "I am sure they were not. Can you walk or do you need medical assistance?" "I can walk." "But Captain, what about the other prisoners? Most of them are innocent beings who were captured like I was." "Already taken care of, kid. Sergeant Yunbi's team is evacuating all non-hostile prisoners to our medical ships. The guilty ones will face justice later." On the command deck, Lord Wanho was watching his empire collapse in real time. Reports came in from across the station. Human soldiers appearing in critical locations. Security forces being defeated without casualties. Important systems being shut down with impossible precision. "How many humans are aboard my station?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir," replied Young-ho. "Our sensors cannot track them properly. They appear and disappear like ghosts, some kind of advanced stealth technology." Commander Yuki was studying the tactical reports with growing amazement. "Sir, look at this. The humans are not trying to destroy the station. They are systematically capturing strategic locations while avoiding civilian areas. They have disabled our weapons and shields, but they have not harmed any non-combatant personnel." "What does that mean?" "It means they are not here for conquest or revenge. They came only to rescue their child." Wanho's purple skin darkened with rage. "I do not care why they came. This is my station, and I will not surrender it to aliens. Activate the self-destruct system. If I cannot keep this place, no one can have it." Yuki stared at him in horror. "Sir, that will kill everyone aboard. Over 40,000 beings live and work on this station. Then they will die as martyrs to my glory." Activate the system now. But before Yuki could reach the controls, the command deck's main door opened. Admiral Minho walked in wearing simple military fatigues, flanked by 2 soldiers in powered armor. He was not a large man, average height for a human with graying hair and tired eyes, but his presence filled the room like a physical force. "Lord Wanho, I presume," he said calmly. "I am Admiral Minho of the human Deep Space Fleet. You are under arrest for crimes against a human child." Wanho drew his ceremonial sword and pointed it at the human admiral. "You dare board my station? I will feed your body to the arena beasts." Minho did not even look at the weapon. Instead, he walked to the main communication console and activated it. His voice echoed through every speaker on the station. "Attention all personnel. This is Admiral Minho. The rescue operation is complete. All human forces will withdraw in 30 minutes. Any being who wishes safe passage away from this station should report to evacuation points immediately. This offer extends to all species and all individuals, regardless of their previous actions." He turned to face Wanho, who was still waving his sword dramatically. "Your employees are free to leave or stay as they choose, but you and your senior staff will be transported to Earth for trial. I will never surrender to inferior aliens," Wanho snarled. "You already have," Minho said quietly. "You just do not realize it yet." 2 hours later, Death's Gate Station hung silent in space. Half of its population had chosen to leave with the human evacuation ships. The other half remained behind, but under new management, former prisoners who had been freed and chosen to stay to help other captives. Lord Wanho and his closest associates sat in the brig of Soul's Fury, awaiting transport to Earth where they would face justice for their crimes. Commander Yuki had surrendered peacefully and was cooperating with human investigators. Admiral Minho stood on his bridge, watching the last human ships prepare to leave the system. The rescue mission was complete, but he knew the consequences were just beginning. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Hyuna, "we are receiving communication requests from 47 different governments and military organizations. They all want to know about human military capabilities." "Route them all to Diplomatic Command on Earth," Minho replied. This was a rescue mission, not a demonstration of power. But perhaps it is time for humanity to take its proper place in galactic affairs. Captain Jiwon entered the bridge with Jiho at her side. The boy had been medically examined and cleared for duty, though he would be returning to Earth for psychological evaluation after his ordeal. "Admiral," Jiho said formally, "I want to thank you and your crews for retrieving me. I know the risks you took by revealing our capabilities." Minho knelt down to the boy's eye level, just as Captain Jiwon had done in the prison cell. "Jiho, you are worth any risk. You are our future, and we will always come for you. Always." As the human fleet jumped into hyperspace, heading home to Earth, they left behind a changed galaxy. The Combat League was finished. The shadow sectors would never again be safe havens for those who preyed on the innocent. And across 1,000 worlds, beings who had thought themselves powerless began to hope that someone was finally strong enough to protect them. 6 months after the destruction of the Combat League, the galaxy was a different place. The space station that had once been called Death's Gate now bore a new name, Haven Station. Instead of hosting blood sports for entertainment, it served as a refugee processing center and medical facility for beings rescued from slavery and trafficking. Dr. Yunjin, a human xenobiologist, walked through the station's new medical bay checking on patients from 17 different species. The facility had been built using human technology and funded by reparations paid by former League supporters. It was staffed by volunteers from across the galaxy, many of them former prisoners who had chosen to help others instead of seeking revenge. "Doctor, we have new arrivals from the Theta sector," reported Nurse Jinwoo, a young human who had volunteered for service after hearing about the rescue mission. 43 beings who were being held in a fighting arena similar to the old League operations. Dr. Yunjin nodded sadly. "The 4th group this month. It seems there were more of these places than we originally thought." The destruction of Death's Gate had revealed the true scope of the illegal fighting networks. Intelligence gathered from captured League records showed over 200 similar facilities operating in the shadow sectors. Most had shut down voluntarily when news of humanity's military capabilities spread, but some continued operating in hidden locations. Commander Yuki entered the medical bay carrying a data pad and wearing civilian clothes. The former League officer had become the station's administrator after cooperating fully with human investigators. His testimony had led to the capture of dozens of other criminal organizations. "Doctor, I have the weekly report from the Galactic Council," Yuki said, his reptilian voice much softer than it had been during his days as a League commander. 3 more illegal arenas have been shut down this week. The governments are finally taking action against these operations. Dr. Yunjin accepted the data pad and reviewed the information. That brings the total to 147 facilities closed since the Haven Accords were signed. Progress is being made. The Haven Accords were a series of treaties establishing basic rights for all sentient beings in the galaxy. The agreements had been drafted primarily by human diplomats, but they were supported by most major governments who had been shocked by the revelations about the fighting leagues. Captain Salman walked into the medical bay wearing the blue uniform of the new Galactic Protection Service. The former Craxi warrior had become one of the organization's most effective field agents, using her knowledge of criminal networks to track down traffickers and illegal arena operators. "Dr. Yunjin, Commander Yuki," she greeted them with a respectful bow. "I bring news from Earth. The first class of international peacekeepers has graduated from the training academy. Representatives from 23 different species will be working together to combat organized crime." The Galactic Protection Service had been humanity's idea, but it was staffed by volunteers from across known space. Human military instructors taught advanced tactics and technology to beings who had never imagined such cooperation was possible. Far away on Earth, in a classroom overlooking the Pacific Ocean, Jiho sat at a desk writing in a notebook. He wore the simple blue uniform of a civilian school, not the combat gear of Project Nightfall. Around him, other children worked on mathematics problems and literature assignments. His teacher, Ms. Sun-hee, was a former military psychologist who specialized in helping child soldiers adjust to normal life. She had been working with Jiho for months, helping him process his experiences and learn to be a regular 12-year-old boy. "Jiho," she said quietly, approaching his desk, "how are you feeling about the essay assignment?" The boy looked up with eyes that were still older than his years, but showed more peace than they had 6 months ago. "I am writing about my time on the station. Not the fighting parts, but about the other prisoners who helped me. They showed kindness even when they were afraid." Ms. Sun-hee smiled. "That sounds like an excellent topic. Are you comfortable writing about those experiences?" "Yes, teacher. I think it is important to remember that most beings are good, even in bad places. The guards who were cruel were following orders from cruel leaders. But the prisoners who were kind chose to be kind despite their fear." After school, Jiho walked home through the quiet suburbs of Neo Seoul, Earth's newest city. The community had been built specifically for families affected by the Proxima colony attack and other alien conflicts. It was a place where children who had seen too much could learn to be children again. At home, he found a package waiting for him. The return address showed it had come from Haven Station. Inside, he discovered a handwritten letter from Commander Yuki. "Dear Jiho," the letter began in careful human script. "I hope this message finds you well and happy in your studies. I wanted to write to thank you for showing mercy to those of us who wronged you. Your forgiveness has given many of us a chance to make amends for our actions." The letter continued for several pages, describing the work being done at Haven Station and the lives that had been saved because of the changes that followed Jiho's rescue. At the end, Yuki had included a simple drawing, made by a young Zentari child who had been rescued from another fighting arena. Jiho carefully placed the letter in a special box where he kept messages from the many beings whose lives had been changed by that day in the arena. He had received thanks from former prisoners, former guards, and even some former spectators who had realized the horror of what they had been watching. That evening, Admiral Minho visited the house for dinner, as he did every week when his duties allowed. He had been promoted to head the new Galactic Relations Command, but he always made time for the boy whose rescue had changed the political balance of space. "How was school today?" the Admiral asked as they sat down to eat. "Good. We learned about the formation of the Galactic Protection Service. My teacher said that representatives from 47 different species are now working together." "Is that really true?" Minho nodded. "It is true. And more governments are joining every month. Your rescue mission showed the galaxy that cooperation between species is not only possible, but necessary. Are there still fighting arenas operating? A few in very remote locations. But each month we find more of them and shut them down. Captain Soman and her teams are very good at their work. Jiho was quiet for a moment, thinking. Admiral, do you think the galaxy is becoming a safer place? Mino considered the question carefully. I think the galaxy is becoming a more honest place. The cruelty that existed before still exists, but now it cannot hide in the shadows. When beings know that someone is strong enough to protect the innocent, they have hope. And hope makes people braver about standing up to evil. Later that night, Jiho stood at his bedroom window looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, Haven Station continued its work. Former enemies worked together to heal the damage that had been done by years of organized cruelty. He touched the ID tag that still hung around his neck. It no longer broadcast military signals. Those systems had been deactivated when he returned to civilian life. But he kept wearing it as a reminder of an important truth. Humans protected their own. All of their own. And in protecting themselves, they had learned to protect others as well. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, filled with beings who would always choose cruelty over kindness. But it was also filled with those who chose to help instead of harm, to build instead of destroy, to show mercy instead of revenge. As Jiho prepared for bed, he thought about his classmates, his teachers, and his new friends. Tomorrow he would attend classes and play games and worry about homework like any normal child. But he would also remember that somewhere among the stars, former enemies were working together to make sure no other child would face what he had faced. In the deepest classified files of human military intelligence, new operatives continued their training. The galaxy was vast, and humanity had learned that their children needed protection from threats they were only beginning to understand. But those threats were balanced now by something equally powerful, the knowledge that kindness could spread as quickly as cruelty, that mercy could be as contagious as violence, and that sometimes the smallest act of compassion could change the course of history. The next time someone threatened a human child, the response would be swift and decisive. But the galaxy now knew that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their weapons. Their greatest strength was that they never forgot the difference between justice and revenge. And in that difference lay the hope for a better future among the stars.